Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, it's about time we take stock in the free agents still available for the Philadelphia Phillies. I know the fan base is impatient for the Phillies to do something. We're going to run through some names of guys that would still be very interesting for the Philadelphia Phillies to evaluate that are still available as free agents. There's a lot of names that have not been signed yet. So if you feel like the Phils are running out of options, I'm going to tell you why they aren't. And we're going to look at three main positions of need. Starting pitcher, if the Phillies still want to add to that after re-signing Aaron Nola, relief pitching, bullpen help, and outfield depth, another bench bat, a guy that fits that mold that's a versatile defender. So we're going to go through all those positions and who's available for the Philadelphia Phillies still in free agency on today's episode of Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. Really appreciate it. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that helps us out here on Locked On Phillies if you have not done that already. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And of course, Locked On Phillies is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you so much for checking us out. And in today's episode, I know a lot of people are getting antsy when it comes to how the Philadelphia Phillies and Dave Dombrowski are handling free agency. Guys are getting signed left and right. The Phillies are sitting there doing nothing. And this was kind of what I warned you about going into the offseason, right? That Dave Dombrowski doesn't seem to be in a mood to be as aggressive as he usually is. I told you in a previous episode, I've had a chance to talk with Jason Stark, and he said that Dave Dombrowski at the winter meetings was as relaxed as he's ever seen him. Like, just perfectly calm, cool, and collected, not going around and having a bunch of meetings and stuff like that. So that seems to indicate that the Phillies are fine where they're at. I know not everyone in the fan base agrees with that. There are people clamoring for a starting pitcher, another one to be signed, even after the Phillies re-signed Aaron Nola to a long-term deal. Bullpen help, outfield depth. These are the main needs for the Philadelphia Phillies, and they haven't done anything at those spots really besides re-signing Aaron Nola. So what do the Philadelphia Phillies still have at their disposal to go out there and sign? There are a lot of interesting names. Trust me. We're going to run through some. First off, shout out to Spotrac, who has a great one, the best free agent tracker. If you want to go on and look at this type of stuff yourself, you can do that. But let's start with starting pitchers and talk about who's available for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, the name that everyone's focused on is Blake Snell. He is the next big name available. He's the reigning NL Cy Young. He's got a market value, according to Spotrac, of about $24 million. So that would be the AAV estimate that he'd be looking at, which is the highest mark of anybody out still there on the market. And you're looking at a situation where, okay, he's going to be worth a lot of money. He's just came off Cy Young Award. But here's the thing. He's 31. He's going to be turning 32 this coming year. It'll be after the season. But, he's just turned 21. Just turned 31. So you're looking at a guy that if you're going to give him a long-term deal, if you're going to give him, for example, Nola got 7 years. If Blake Snell's going to get 7 years at 31, then you're going to have multiple pitchers on this roster that are signed deep into their 30s. 37, 38, 39-year-old season, like that type of range. And pitchers do normally fall off around 33, 34, 35. Now, some guys are productive into those late 30s. But even then, even the greats, Scherzer, Verlander, guys like that, Clayton Kershaw, who's still out there and available. And, man, how old is Kershaw now? Yeah, he's turning 36 coming up. He feels ancient compared to that because he's just been around so long. My point is, committing that amount of money to another pitcher who is going to be into his late 30s by the time that contract is done, you can do it, but the back end of those deals are not going to look great for Aaron Nola and Blake Snell if you go ahead and decide to commit more money. So I don't think Blake Snell is going to be the Phillies' move. Even though they threw money at Yoshinobu Yamamoto and didn't sign him, but they made a major offer to Yamamoto. I don't see the Phillies as a landing spot for Blake Snell. So who else is out there that could potentially fit what the Phillies are looking for? A high upside, lower price guy that could slot into the rotation, a guy that could be a 3, maybe slot in right kind of where Ranger Suarez is. So who's like the Ranger Suarez comp out there? Now, all these guys are slightly older because of the service time you need to get to free agency, but let's go ahead and look. And I'm looking at some of the ages of these guys. I mean, Marcus Stroman was a guy that was interesting at the trade deadline. He's turning 33 this year. I don't think that he's got a lot left in the tank, and he wasn't a great acquisition at the trade deadline, like a great opportunity for that, which is why you didn't see the Phillies go do that at the trade deadline. I don't see Marcus Stroman as a landing spot here. Julio Urias, no shot because of the off-the-field stuff. Mike Clevenger's kind of interesting to me with the White Sox to end this past year. Righty at 33 years of age. He's a little bit older. It'd be a shorter-term contract, but he's a guy that people are going to remember as like, okay, yeah, Clevenger absolutely got smoked against the Philadelphia Phillies in the NLCS 2 years ago with the Padres. That's what people are going to remember. They're going to be like, we don't want Clevenger. I don't hate him as like a middle-of-the-rotation depth guy. Jordan Montgomery is also interesting. Jordan Montgomery with the Texas Rangers got a ring this past year, has not yet been re-signed by the Texas Rangers, 31 years of age. He's a guy that's going to command a good amount of money, but he's a guy that could be an interesting risk to take at that point in his career. I don't think he'll get as long-term of a deal as Blake Snell. So you might say, Connor, he's the same age as Blake Snell. Why would you give the money to him and not Snell? I think you could probably bring him in here on a 3 to 4 year deal if the money is right and make that work. He's an interesting case because he has that postseason success recently. Our good friend Michael Lorenzen's out there. He's not going to be an option for the Philadelphia Phillies. Another name, just to give you a blast from the past, Vince Velasquez is out there available after his time with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't think that's realistic either. Could the Philadelphia Phillies potentially go and get one of the ancient guys? And ancient in terms of baseball, but Kershaw's still out there available. Zach Greinke still out there available. I remember a time where those two shared the rotation together. And now they're both sitting on the free agent list with not a lot of interest to this point. Could this be, if the Phillies are going to look at Christopher Sanchez and say, talented, but we want a veteran. We want a guy that's proven. We want a guy that we know has been in the moment before. If that's what they're looking for, it could be a Greinke or Kershaw. Honestly, I don't really see a guy out here on the free agent market for the Philadelphia Phillies in the starting pitching market that's the right fit for them. Jordan Montgomery is probably the closest fit. And I think that there are going to be more suitors that drive up the price for him than what the Phillies are willing to pay for a guy who's going to be middle of their rotation. That's the issue. Like, would he be a good number 3 behind Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler? Absolutely. I would love to have Jordan Montgomery here. But, I mean, lefty, that's even better. Like, he would fit into the rotation great to have those top 2 righties and then a lefty to go to after that. And then you got Ranger Suarez, you got Christopher Sanchez also throw from that side of the mound that you're looking at. Like, that would be helpful. I don't know if the price point is going to land where the Phillies want it to be. I would tell you that more likely than not, the rotation that you see right now, which is Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, Walker, Sanchez, is going to be the rotation that you have heading into spring training. And there's a chance maybe that Mick Abel or Griff McGarry make some noise and have a better 2024 season and get into the conversation like later on in the season about a call-up. But Dave Dombrowski said in his end-of-year media availability that those guys are not ready to contribute when he talked about Mick Abel and Griff McGarry. So I don't know how close they are. It doesn't seem like Dave Dombrowski believes they're that close, and that scares me a little bit as to the ability for them to contribute this year. And you might say, okay, well, I don't feel comfortable with the rotation where it's at. Honestly, folks, we might have to be, because I don't see a great fit when you look at dollar amount, age, and talent level for the Philadelphia Phillies in the starting pitching market. But they're definitely, I guarantee you, they're going to sign a reliever or maybe even two, depending on if they decide they want to go trade or if they want to just sign straight guys. They probably have to sign two major league caliber relievers from free agency this year. So coming up, we're going to have a conversation about the relief pitchers still available for the Philadelphia Phillies. And there are a couple guys that fit really well, I think, that could come to Philadelphia in free agency. So I'll tell you who that is coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Real quick, I want to tell you about my friends at FanDuel, though. The NFL regular season is wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. It's $150 that you get in bonus bets, win or lose. It's just perfect. You don't have to win it anymore. No, it's win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet. You got live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explore tab that help you find all the hot bets on the site. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best place to find popular parlays that have been put together, see what other people are betting, and see if you want to jump on board. And there's more. You can bet the money line, you bet over-unders, you can bet futures, all that great stuff. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon, and you can make your first bet a layup. So easy. It's very lucrative to have those bonus bets and be able to spend it on other stuff. So go check out FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, let's flip over to relief pitchers here. And again, I'm using Spotrac's free agent tracker to go ahead and break this stuff down for you. It's a great tool. It's up to date all the time. So go ahead and check that out if you want to follow along yourself. The name that everyone thinks about in the relief pitcher market is Josh Hader. Now, you're rarely going to see a relief pitcher get upwards of $15 million a year. And yet Josh Hader's market value this year, $17.5 million. He's going to be the most expensive reliever signed on the market this year. And it doesn't seem like the Phillies have a whole lot of interest in bringing him in. They don't want to pay that price point for a reliever. They don't, with all the high-level talent they already have signed to lucrative contracts, they're looking at guys who fill in the margins and are not the all-star, big-name, greatest closer out there available, which whether you like that or not, that's your call. I don't think the Phillies are a landing spot for Josh Hader. I would like him on this team. I think he would fill a much-needed role, which would be a set closer. I don't think the Phillies want that. So I don't think it's realistic to sit here and be like, okay, well, Josh Hader is an option for the Phillies. I don't see it. But let's look at who is. There are a couple names that really pop to me. One is 34 and a half years old, and you're very familiar with him here in Philadelphia. Hector Neris, who was with the Astros for a couple years, is a free agent, is right around the $7 million market value range. So you're looking at a little bit pricier than I think the Phillies would like to go to fill out their rotation, but he's a guy that has closer experience, that is a veteran, that has pitched in big moments, both here in Philadelphia and in Houston. Was part of the World Series winning team last year that beat the Philadelphia Phillies. And he's familiar with the city. He's familiar with a lot of guys on this staff. He would be a really nice fit. Again, a little more pricey for the Philadelphia Phillies when it comes to what I'd imagine they want to spend on a relief pitcher, which would be somewhere between the $2.5 to $5 million a year range. And Hector Neris, again, where they're estimating him, is about 7.5. So a little outside that range, but if the Phillies feel inclined to bring back an old friend, I would love the fit that Hector Neris brings to this bullpen. It's a righty, which you need more competent right-handed pitchers with Craig Kimbrell departing, with Jeff Hoffman being a kind of out of nowhere story. I don't know how much faith you have in him. And Sir Anthony Dominguez is up and down. Having Hector Neris would be a nice addition. So that's one of the guys that I'm certainly looking at. Another name that has popped up a lot for the Philadelphia Phillies this offseason is a guy, Jordan Hicks, who finished with Toronto. You might remember him from his time in St. Louis. A righty, a flamethrower. I'm mainly looking at righties for the bullpen because I think the combination of Strahm and Soto and, of course, Jose Alvarado matches up your top lefties. You might get a long-term lefty, not a long-term, but a long relief lefty to mix in there. But Jordan Hicks is a guy It's right around $3.4 million on the market value, so it fits in. He's 27 years old, so he's not old. He's like right in that same type of time frame as Gregory Soto. He would be a near identical acquisition to Soto, right? It's a hard-throwing guy, command issues, not totally what you want as far as a polished guy, but it's a high-ceiling add because of the stuff and the velocity they have. That's kind of what Gregory Soto was, right? We'll get a hard-throwing lefty in here. We'll do what we did with Jose Alvarado. And Jose Alvarado is the mold for all of these guys. You acquire a young pitcher from an organization in Tampa Bay that was like, we can't get the control under control, for lack of a better term. And you end up turning him into one of the better lefty relievers in all of baseball because he has that velocity and he has that movement. Then they acquire Soto and they try and do the same thing. It hasn't quite panned out yet, but I imagine that was the thought process behind that trade. Now is Jordan Hicks the next step in that mold? Is he a guy that you can go out and throw a little bit of money to, take a flyer, see if you can figure that out? Velocity will never be looked down upon when it comes to the bullpen. I don't know if he will have a productive season, but I really think Jordan Hicks is a guy that fits perfectly for the Philadelphia Phillies in high risk, high reward, not too expensive, right age, and also you're looking at a guy right-handed too that kind of fits in the mold with the bullpen and adds another high leverage righty arm if you can get him figured out. So I like that as well. There's a couple other options out there, a couple other names for guys that you might be familiar with. Aroldis Chapman is out there. He's turning 36 and he hasn't been quite as productive. Daniel Hudson's 36, turning 37. He's one of those guys that's just been around forever, but he's pitching a lot of big spots. You could look at a guy like Michael Fulmer, was with the Cubs last year, 30 years old, not that expensive, like under $5 million assumed value here on Spotrac. Like there are a couple other guys that fill that in, but I'll tell you what, Hector Neris, Jordan Hicks. If you had to ask me who the two guys I would add if I'm the Philadelphia Phillies, if I need to add two bullpen arms, it seems like they have two spots in the bullpen available, I would be going with Jordan Hicks and I'd be going with Hector Neris. Hector Neris would get a shot at potentially closing for this team. Jordan Hicks would be a project that throws hard that you add to the right-handers in the pen that already have some velocity, like a Ryan Kerkering, like Sir Anthony Dominguez, like Jeff Hoffman, and then you just go to work on those righties and hope that you can get them to a place where they're consistent and productive. But those are the guys that I have my eye on. And you might like some other names out there. Lou Trevino, Monty Peralta, Mark Melanson, Aaron Loop. There's plenty. Drew Pomerantz, Liam Hendricks. There's plenty of aged relievers, and you can get these guys up to like 40 years old. Most of these guys are in their mid-30s, and they'll still be productive. So age is less important when you look at relievers as well. But a lot of options for relief pitchers. That is the area that I think is most likely for the Philadelphia Phillies to add in free agency. Like beyond a shadow of a doubt, I think they're adding a free agent reliever. So those are the guys there that I'm interested in and are still available. And coming up as we wrap up, we're going to talk about outfield depth and who could potentially take Jake Cave's spot in 2024. I know that's music to a lot of Phillies fans' ears. So we'll talk about that coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. First, I want to tell you about Jase Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but let's just talk about preparing for tough situations for a minute. You might be on extended travel, bracing for a major weather event. We just had a crazy storm in Philly last night, or you're limited by yet another supply shortage. Well, you're covered regardless. Thanks to our partners at Jase Medical, life-saving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply, even ED generics for Cialis or Viagra. Jase Medical also has the Jase case, which is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses like UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, a whole bunch of others. This stuff could happen to any of us. It really could. So you want to be prepared. Visit jasemedical.com and complete your physician encounter. It's going to be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications are going to be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. So go to jasemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON for $20 off your order. So go ahead and check out Jase Medical today. All right, let's flip over to the outfield section of Spotrac's tracker tool for free agents. And there's a guy, I've brought him up before. He's just such a perfect fit. He makes the most sense of any free agent. I wanted to be a Philadelphia Philly so darn bad. Like, you have no idea just how well he would fit with this team. He's still out there and available. It's not Cody Bellinger. Yes, Cody Bellinger is going to be worth a whole lot of money, still a free agent from the Chicago Cubs with tendered a qualifying offer, but he's out there in free agency and has not been signed. Jock Peterson's another guy out there. It's a big name you'll know. Jorge Soler is still out there, a guy that was with the Marlins last year. You saw the power on display when the Phillies played them in NL East play. But the guy that I really have my eye on is Enrique Kike Hernandez, just over 32 years of age, a veteran who's played on winning teams, was with the Dodgers this past year. The Dodgers throwing a lot of money at guys like Shohei Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They're probably not going to re-sign him. He's still sitting out there in free agency. He's worth about $4.5 million market value, according to Spotrac. That wouldn't be too expensive. And he's a guy as a right-handed bat off the bench to even out the Harper and the Schwarber power numbers. Has a little bit of pop, but most importantly, he's such a versatile defender. He can play in the infield. He can play in the outfield. He can do that often. He could start if you need him to in case of injury to any of your starting players, mainly in the outfield. But he's just a guy with such versatility, a lot of experience at the major league level, and he would fit so well for the Philadelphia Phillies. I would love Kike Hernandez to come here and be a part of this team. Another guy who I actually really like is Randall Grichuk, who was with Colorado a lot of last year and then ended up in Los Angeles after the trade deadline. He is a solid defender who hit right around 300 last year. Now, he's about an $8 million market value, according to Spotrac. And again, these are all estimates based on this website, but he'll probably be more expensive than Kike Hernandez. And do you want to spend $8 million a year on a guy who's going to spend a lot of time on the bench? That might be a little too pricey. I like Grichuk at the trade deadline this past year. I don't know if I like him as much in free agency, but we'll see what happens. I mean, if Kike Hernandez goes off the board, you're going to have to look at signing one of these guys. Tommy Pham is a guy who's not too expensive, at least shouldn't be, turning 36 this year. A right-handed bat, was part of the Arizona Diamondbacks this past year, and you saw the role he played with that team. Could he be a veteran presence that just comes in, hopefully a more productive version of what the Phillies tried to do with Josh Harrison in the infield this past year? Maybe. I mean, could you go get a Whit Merrifield to potentially be an outfield utility guy at nearly 35 years of age? Kevin Pillar, still a solid defender. He was with the Atlanta Braves last year. He's a free agent, 35 years of age. Maybe he could be an option. But none of these names fit as well as Kike Hernandez does. Even guys like, you might see a name like J.D. Martinez, MVP guy before, but I don't know. Where's the spot for him on this team? Are you going to put him out in the outfield to play defense, or is he here to be a DH? And do you need that with Kyle Schwarber? And at 36 years old, is he worth the amount of money he's going to command? Like, no one seems to fit the mold quite as well as Kike Hernandez does. If you ask me, the guys that I've gone through, and I look at like Montgomery and Hicks and Neris and Kike Hernandez, and I had to pick one of those guys, if I had my choice, Kike Hernandez is a Philadelphia Philly tomorrow. But I do think they're letting the market settle a little bit. There are a lot of outfielder names out there. A lot of guys still to get signed. I mean, Eddie Rosario, Jesse Winker, Jurickson Profar, Adam Duvall, David Peralta, Brad Miller, Bamboo Brad still out there. I mean, there's so many outfielders that are actual, like, legitimate options for depth that you can sit around and wait and let the market be set. So there's no rush to go out and get Kike Hernandez tomorrow. He's just a guy that I think would fit so well with this team. I want to see him in Philadelphia Phillies pinstripes. So that's an update on some of the top free agents still available for the Philadelphia Phillies at positions of need and who I think will fit best for them. Let me know if there's anyone I missed in the comments, anyone you're out there looking at and it's like, oof, I'd really like this guy to play here in Philadelphia. And, appreciate you checking us out for another episode of Locked On Phillies. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. And I will talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.